Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial with Loyal Fire Tuts and Tech. Now if you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe because I upload videos weekly and I will take any suggestions or questions and try my best to help. So first of all, when we're compressing vocals, it all depends on what kind of track we're mixed into and what kind of vocal we've got recorded. So if we've got a really dynamic vocal, we might need to compress a bit more. If we've got a really open sounding mix and we've got a lot of space for the vocal, we don't really need to compete against anything and it's quite open, then we can preserve some of the transients in the vocal. We don't need to compress as much. Whereas if we've got a full sounding track and we've got a lot of things to compete with and we're cutting through frequency wise, but we need to compete with the volume, then we might need to compress a little bit more just to get everything heard. So for this tutorial I'm just using the H compressor, but you could use any compressor you want, and I'm just going to show you a quick way of setting up the compressor so that you can hear what each parameter is doing to the sound. So we're going to set the ratio the highest, attack the fastest, release the fastest, threshold all the way down. So with the attack we can either choose to smooth out some of the attack of the vocal by grabbing it straight away, or we can let some of it through. So if we've got a vocal that's really smooth and is quite soft, long notes and quite smooth transients, then we can afford to have a slower attack and let it through and then grab hold of it later. Whereas if we've got a vocal that is quite exciting and fast and like say a rap vocal or even a fast song vocal, and it's got some parts that are jumping out, we might want to have a faster attack so we're grabbing hold of it a bit quicker. So let's just have a listen to the vocal we're working with.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky.
Okay, so it's quite well recorded, it's quite smooth. We've got a little bit of that jumps out here, just a few little bits that kind of jump out a little bit. So we want to get that under control, but we want to try and preserve some of it as well. So we're going to try and set our attack somewhere in a nice place, so we're not letting too much of it through, but we're not grabbing it straight away. Okay, so let's try and get it in a nice place.
The sky, you and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky.
Okay, so as you can hear, we're grabbing it quite quick there, but not straight away. We're grabbing it like, well, we're grabbing it 1.6 milliseconds after it's after the compressor's picked it up. So we're grabbing it quite quick just so I can grab hold of these jumpy bits here. If we were working with a vocal that had more smoother transients, then I'd probably have the attack a lot slower than that. So with the release, what we want to do is think of it in terms of the rhythm of the compression. Now we've got a little feature here which is quite cool where we can set it to the BPM so that we can have it on 16th notes, quarter notes, eighth notes. But we're going to do it by ear instead because we want it natural sounding, we want to have it a little bit of swing, we don't want it too robotic. So what we want to do is we don't want it compressing all the time, we want the compressor to kind of release. We don't want our release too fast because then we'll get like a pumping effect and we don't really want that, we want it kind of smooth sounding. We want to set it as slow as possible, but we want to give it a chance to kind of get back to near zero before it kicks in again. So let's set that.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright.
I think that sounds quite nice. So next we want to set the ratio. Now with the ratio, the higher we have it, the more under control we're going to have the sound, but the more squashed it's going to sound and the more smaller it's going to sound. Whereas with a lower ratio, the more bigger and open it's going to sound, but the less under control it's going to be. So what you'll notice with this is because we've got our attack and our release set in a good place, then we can compress a lot more without it sounding too compressed. Whereas if we have our attack and our release set in a not so good place, then we'll be able to hear the compressor working a lot more and it won't sound as natural. So this is a really big advantage.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky.
Round there sounds quite good, but I'm just going to back it off a little bit.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky.
And as I said, as the ratio gets higher, you'll hear the vocal become smaller.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky.
So around there sounds about right. It says there that we're knocking off like -6 dB, but it doesn't sound too compressed. It sounds okay. So next what we want to do is set our threshold. Now with our threshold, what we want to do is let the vocal breathe so it's not compressing constantly, because at the moment we're compressing constantly. So with the threshold, we're going to let it breathe, but we're going to still catch the peaks. So we're just going to grab hold of the peaks. So let's set that.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I.
Okay, there sounds about right. So now we've set our threshold, we can choose to turn our ratio up if we want to make it compress a little bit more. Now that we're letting it breathe a little bit.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright.
So round about there sounds pretty good. We're knocking off like 4 dB at the most on like the highest part. So that's pretty good. We're not compressing too much, but we're still controlling it quite a bit and it sounds quite natural. We'll just do an A and B in a sec. You can change these parameters to whatever you want, you know, to suit your needs. If you want it to be compressing quite a lot more, then you could bring your ratio up to get it under control, or you could bring your threshold down a bit so that you're compressing more consistently. Just one thing to be careful with the ratio is, remember that if you're compressing further down the line, your ratio, whatever you set at, is going to multiply by this ratio rather than add it. So just be careful with that so you're not compressing too much. Okay, so let's just do a quick A and B, and we can also see if we need to turn the output up a little bit in case we're losing any volume. So let's just have a listen.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright as we light.
Okay, so straight away we can hear that the volume overall there's not much of a difference. Just in them peaks, in them louder bits, we're just getting them a lot more under control with the compressor on. So if we wanted to turn it up a bit louder just to get up to them peaks where they were, we could just put it up to like 1 dB, something like that.
You and I shining bright as we light up the sky. You and I shining bright.
Okay, so we've got the compressor doing its job. It's catching them peaks, but it doesn't sound too compressed. It still sounds quite natural. So I hope you found this useful, guys. Hopefully you've got something out of it. Please give us a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. So that we're gliding between the notes to add a bit more movement. Now we could also thicken up the sound by modulating the pitch at a high rate, and we can do that by using this vibrato setting here.